The business is not the end game. It's just a vehicle, and it's a vehicle to all of these other things. I think that changed my perspective of like, the business was the last thing. This is what you do. This is who you are. I start this gym. I'm going to own this gym for like, as long as I can do this, it's just going to be my thing and who I am. But it actually moved it into the middle of the storyline, as it's just the vehicle to all of these other things that a business can enable to create.
The stories are often very common, right? You know, people who have that entrepreneurial spirit, first of all, like you said, they're opportunistic. They see gaps, they see holes, they see opportunity where other people don't really see it. And I think the challenge a lot of times, like you and I have had the same exact experience. I've been in business. Really, I tell everyone, like, I was just born an entrepreneur. Like I was 9 years old, having side hustles and just like trying to figure out what, you know, I mean, it's just like who I am. And you really flail, you like you said, your word was flailing, and you struggle, you wrestle with it. And some people just aren't really built for that part of it, right? Like they have the intellect, they have the expertise, but the struggle that people have through owning a business, especially like a small business, you're not making a ton of money. Maybe it's just you, or maybe you and one other person. And that's why I'm so glad there's people like you. I have been so lucky to receive mentoring and coaching and guidance from other really smart, grounded, you know, experienced people. And we need people like you out there doing what you do.
I think it's the word you're looking for in that storyline is resilience, right?
Yeah.
Like people's tolerance level towards how resilient can they be. And yeah, entrepreneurs are some of the greatest at that. And I think just how you conduct your real life, even outside of your business, sort of plays into that character role as well, right? And so now you get into that position where shit is like, excuse my language, but like shit is just not going well. And
yes.
The thing is like you see the end game, like you see where it is that you're trying to take this thing, and it's just like, can you handle hit after hit? But like looking back, and what is the lesson I'm supposed to learn here? What is the lesson? And like trying to continuously carry that thing forward, knowing that the end game is, you know, just outside of your reach, but you're gonna reach it. And I think that's part of what makes the game so fun. I remember earlier in my business career, and this is like super early into it, somebody asked me like why do you want to be a gym owner? And I had just said to myself, I was like, you know what? It's not actually the gym business. Like it's just the game of business that I love to play. You know, it's like, what do I have to say to help to get this person in my door so that I can show them that I can solve their problems? What is the game I have to play? What are the things I have to say? Like, I love the game of business. And I knew that right away, which was weird because being a business owner was never on my radar. Never. My parents are very traditional, 9 to 5, union workers, you know what I mean? And so this was just not a conversation we had ever had.
Yeah. And I think that's, I think that's one of the things that you said that like really stood out to me, because this is, again, a frustrating part of business, right? You'll be doing everything right and things will be going well. You'll have figured out the game a little bit, right? And then the thing that's a little different about business than like, I know you're an athlete, you've been an athlete, so you understand sport like basketball, right? The rules are always the same. You know, the conditions are always the same. You have the same court, you got the same hoop, you got the same ball, but a few things change, like the team you're playing or your teammates or whatever. And so it's very similar to that, right? Where the game is always changing. And what worked for you last year and maybe got you to do really well, all of a sudden just stops working for you. And that's where that resilience and that coaching and that insight from other people, you know, really comes into play. Just like, again, I love sport, so I know you do too. So the analogy is, you know, that's why everybody needs a coach. Every coach needs a coach. Every player needs like a position coach. You know, it's just part of the game.
I think it's like, and the coaching to be adaptable, right? Like you run the play doesn't work. Okay, cool. Let's like, you have this one play, but there's 10 different branches off of that play. Like if I pass the ball to that person over there, there's 10 different routes that other player can run to make that play still happen. And so your ability to, I call it like ebb and flex, like flex and flow with all
Yes.
the stuff that's happening around you, is that ultimately is going to help you determine how successful you're going to be, right? Like if you are in a one-track mind, that's going to be a hard adjustment for you, and you might not ever be able to make those adjustments. But if you toss the ball to your staff member and you know that the end goal is the ball on the hoop, how we get there is that part doesn't really matter. There's, I'm going to give you guidance on how we can do that, but you just need to follow the right route that's going to get there. And there's 10 different ways that you can do that, and
Yeah.
that's really just their ability to adapt.
Yeah, and again, that's the thing is like there are certain people I think who really thrive in that environment, and there are certain people who really don't. Like there are some people who just say, I want to follow A, B, C, D. I want to give me a an SOP, step 1, step 2, step 3, and I want to follow that. And they're really very black and white. And when things don't necessarily go according to those steps, they really struggle. They're like, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore. So I think that's one piece of it. And then Dan Martell in his book, Buy Back Your Time, like there was something that his story really resonates with me. He had anyone who knows me personally knows this is true. He had a criminal background. I had a criminal background. He like the chaos in his early life really did set him up for success to be a high-level entrepreneur, because he could deal with as you called the flex and the flow, right? Shit was just chaotic all the time. You're always adjusting. You're always pivoting. And I think that there are certain people, who are set up to be good business owners. And once they can get their shit together, they can be really successful business owners. I'm curious about your perspective on that. Like, what do you think makes for a good business owner?
That's funny. As you're talking about his story, which I love his book and I love his story, and that's cool that you guys can live parallel lives in that regard. I always laugh at my upbringing because I was the younger kid of two, but I was 11 years difference between my brother and I. So my story I like to tell is I was probably a mistake child that they weren't expecting. And so, what comes along with that, like you're the younger kid, you're clawing for scraps, like you're clawing for attention. You basically have to figure things out on your own. And that's how I would put my upbringing. And that's why I find that I am successful in whatever type of, not just a leadership role, but whatever role you're going to put me in, I'm going to try and find how the puzzle pieces fit together, because no one else is going to do that for me. And I would rather create that for myself anyways. So yeah, definitely how, what your own storyline looks like, but you got to make the most of whatever position you're put in, and those that have that inclination to try and figure it out versus being told what to do. Those are probably, and I don't mean this in an offensive type of way or anything, typical Canadian. Sorry, I don't mean this in an offensive way. Those are probably the people who better excel in a 9-to-5 employee type of environment, which we need those people, right? Like our businesses would not function without those types of people. So
yes,
they're equally as important as the CEOs and the business owners who have to be less hands-on and more thinking caps on, to try and push the storyline along.
Yeah, I think what you just said was so beautiful because, and I found this to be true. Again, knowing a lot of business owners, I think there are some who are kind of like naturally inclined towards it, but there's a ton of very successful business owners who have all different types of backgrounds. Yeah. And I think it really comes down to this, right? Use what you've got. Whatever life gave you, whatever your circumstances are, whatever there's like all these different contextual factors. Whatever it is, use that shit. Like, make the best of whatever you've got in front of you.
And it's interesting because I didn't know that those things were important about myself when I first started. Like I said, like I was 20. I didn't know what I was doing. I just said yes because some guy asked me and I thought he was successful and I thought I had the golden ticket in front of me, Yeah. But one of the very first things I started doing, because I was working for him, I was the front desk sort of like admin in his chiro clinic, but I was also sort of like half doing my practicum hours. So he would take his clients in for treatment and I would sit at the front desk and I would pull out entrepreneurial book after and I would just like sit there and I'm studying like, what exactly does it mean to be an entrepreneur? And like, also what benefits does that lifestyle open up? Because I also did not know that either, Yeah, you get to work for yourself and create your own schedule and like all those cliche things, but there's actually a whole other world on top of that you just don't know about if this is not something that you ever like studied or knew much about prior to. You know, I was never exposed to it. And so I would pull these books out and I'm reading and I'm just like basically trying to train myself to not only be an entrepreneur, but think like an entrepreneur. Right.
Yeah.
And I always try and separate those two terms. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I try and separate those two terms between like business owner and entrepreneur. Because I honestly think they're two different roles, right?
Yeah.
Like those people that try and like operate by the follow the SOPs. I have this one roadmap that I'm trying to follow. Business owner, for sure. Amazing. Yeah. Cool. Hope it works for you. Entrepreneur is like, that's where I would put the chaos. You know, that's the person who's like got nothing but open runway in front of them. And they're just trying to figure out where to land the plane. Like, what is the straight road here? I don't know.
Yeah. You mentioned that while you were studying, there was, you know, like what people think about owning a business. Like I, you know, set my own schedule and kind of being my own, which I think is hilarious because I thought the same thing. I was an only child. I'm super independent, so, and I came out of the military. You know, I was in the military. So the main thing I was thinking about when I really like legitimately started businesses was I don't want to work for anyone else, you know, and which is hilarious now because which you realize anyone who's probably ever said that and actually started a business realizes that you actually end up having hundreds of bosses. You actually end up working for everybody else because that's the nature of business, right?
It's clients think they run your business.
Yeah, service-based business, right? So, so anyway, but not to take away, but I think that like that's what I was thinking, and you mentioned it's not just that, right? Like it's not just setting your schedule and not just kind of like, you know. So, what were some of the other things that you learned through your studies that helped you to be a better entrepreneur?
I wrote about this the other day, but honestly, it was like Robert Kiyoski's book was the thing I think that really opened my mind of what it meant to be an entrepreneur. That just, you know, the business is not the end game. It's just a vehicle, and it's a vehicle to all of these other things. And I think that changed my perspective of like, the business was the last thing, right? Like this is what you do. This is who you are. This is like, I start this gym. I'm going to own this gym for as long as I can coach, like as long as I can do this, it's just going to be my thing and who I am. But it actually moved it into the middle of the storyline as it's just the vehicle to all of these other things that a business can enable to create. Right. And I'm not to say that like a normal career path as an employee can't create those things also, because absolutely there's lots of people who have done, you know, the other branches of that, but having having the freedom of what happens in your business and like what you do with that success was just, and more so maybe the control over it was the thing that I was like, that's what I want. And that's why I'm doing this, as opposed to, I just don't want to work for someone else. Right. Like that, I feel like that's a one-track mind. All you've done is just told yourself, you don't want to work for someone else, as opposed to like, I want this business because I want to be in control of what happens. Right. Like, that's different.
Well, and I think what I think I'm hearing in what you're saying is, and what I talk to, this is what I spend a lot of time. I mean, I feel like this is part of who I am and why I'm here is purpose. The word I always use is purpose, right? Is, you know, I'm here in this life and in this existence, and I have to believe that if nothing else, if I've got to be here, I want it to mean something, right? And I think that as a business owner, what you get is the opportunity, you know, if you're thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Like, you know, you go from like your basic needs getting met, like paying your bills and feeding and having a shelter over your head, and going all the way to the top of that pyramid of self-actualization. And business gives you that opportunity to have purpose and to be in control of like fully expressing yourself and how you want to show up in the world and how you want to be useful to other people. And no one else gets to, not as many other people get to get their fingers in that. You know,
it gave me a platform.
Yes.
And that was incredibly rewarding for me. And it wasn't anything that I ever could have seen coming. And it actually took me a few years of having that platform to look back and be like, oh yeah, I have this platform. Like, look at what this has enabled me to do. And I think once I realized that, that's when I really started to, I don't want to say take things seriously, but I was no longer taking things lightly, I guess.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
part of it was like my CrossFit career as an athlete and like how I was building that, and, you know, the storyline I was building along with that. But the gym became this amazing platform to show people that it's not like health and fitness, change your life, extend your longevity. Like, we know all those amazing things, but it's the people that would come in and be like, I just got pregnant and they told me that that was just never possible for me, or I got a raise at my job, or I had the courage to like ask this guy out on a date. Like, all of that extra stuff just because of these people come and work out in your gym, you know?
Yeah.
And that platform has like, it's still there. It just looks a little bit differently now, right? Like, the business owners come in and they work with me, and it's relatively the same type of things, but they're doing it through their business this time. And I don't know about you, but like that, when I wake up and I'm here and I'm going to start a group call with my mentees, like I have a little sticky note right here. It's on the bottom of my monitor, and it says, make them 1% better today. That's always been my motto, is how can I pour back into this world to make the people sitting in front of me 1% better? Because we know it compounds over time. So if I can have just even that little smidge of impact today to make you 1% better, then I've fulfilled my purpose for that day. Right. So man, I ride that wave with you, like, for sure. Purpose is, you know, and I mean, I always say this too, purpose is amazing, and it's important that we have that, but that's why it almost is even more important to grow your business, to put a successful business out there, because you wouldn't have that platform without it. You wouldn't be able to live that purpose, to do those things, if you didn't have this successful foundation underneath you. And, you know, us service business owners, like, we hop in there and we're technicians of our craft, and we love to just tinkle and like tinker and whatever, and like just put as much work into our clients as we can, and we forget about the business. But the business is the thing that enables you to do that. So
yeah, I 100%. And it's that dance all the time, right? Like, because you can feel really fulfilled about the work you're doing and feel like you've got all this purpose and all these touchy-feely good feelings, which I love. I thrive on that. You know, I'm that guy, you know, but no money, no mission, right?
Yeah.
If you aren't running a successful, well-oiled machine of a business that is thriving and runs itself without you being the linchpin and all those other things, then you're going to lose that purpose. All that touchy feeling good stuff that you get out of getting to fully express your purpose is going to go away if you're not kind of working on the business and working in the business to make it thrive, you know?
Yeah. And I don't know if it's just like, we're scared to talk about money, or we're scared to admit maybe the position that we're in. You know, there's multiple factors why people might not necessarily ask for help and just try and dig their heels in and fight through it. I mean, that was me, but it was an ego thing for me. I was like, I'll just figure this out on my own. It took me 8 years to not figure it out until I could ask for help. Right. But I just think back, and if I wouldn't have taken control of my business, none of this would have ever happened. And that sucks. You know, it sucks to think about this. I've had incredible opportunities to just for such reward fulfilling type of experiences, and to help people, and man, that is fuel. Yeah.
I was talking to a small business owner the other day, and she was like, I hate this. I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. I feel trapped. You know, if I could just walk away from it right now, I would, but you know, there's all these like expenses and like investments and all these things that like you couldn't just like throw a match on it and walk away. And you know, that was a really hard thing for me to hear, because there have been many times in my business where I was like, you know, maybe I shouldn't be doing, you know, I mean, I've always questioned, and there's been times when I've just wanted to pour gasoline on it and walk away for sure. But it was never a really long standing feeling. Like, it was just kind of like a pity party moment.
We call them $13 days. That's where
Yes. Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
walked into
Actually,
the business and offered you $13 and you'd be like, all right, it's yours.
take it. Sold. Yeah. But, I'm sure that you encounter people maybe at that stage of their business. And I'm kind of curious how you approach that situation.
Honestly, it's just like, first, let's take 5 minutes just to where you can just sit in your feelings and like acknowledge them, right? Because, and I'll be the first person to say I'm not a feelings person. So the last thing I want to talk about is how sad this makes you feel, or, the touchy feely stuff. But I'll give you that 5 minutes because I think it's important to just have a safe place to say, this sucks. I hate what's going on. This is not what I anticipated it was ever going to be like. And just being able just to voice that, because the alternative is it sits inside and that just brews and brews and brews. And that does not lead you to anything productive, right? So
Right.
Cool. 5 minutes, take it. But then it's like, okay, let's look at the bigger picture. Like, what are the bottlenecks right now? Where do you feel stuck? Like, what is just not working? Let's just like barf that all out. Let's just make a list so that you can just have another 5 minutes to just spew all of the stuff that you think is not working well or going right or whatever it might be. But my job as your mentor is to show you the bigger picture, to at least have that bigger picture perspective, that the stuff you're feeling right now it's just in this moment, right? And if everything is fixable, it is. There's a solution to everything. We just need to figure out what that map is. So cool. We know what the end game is for you, or what it is that you're trying to use this business to do. Let's start working backwards, and then we'll just divide that big chunk of stuff up into little chunks. And then we just take one little chunk at a time, right? And try and get a small win right off the start, another small win on top of that, and just start compounding those wins. And that is going to help us like get through this crap period of time that you are stuck in, but the thing that is most valuable to that owner in that moment is having somebody like myself or another business mentor of some sort, of just having that bigger picture perspective. Hey,
Yes.
I get it. I know exactly how you feel. Been there, walked those shoes myself, but let me show you how I got out of that. Here's what you do next. And that's the value of having that bigger picture perspective in front of you. And you don't have
100%.
that, when you're stuck in the mud and you're spinning your tires, it's hard to think anywhere past the moment that is right in front of you, So
Yeah.
to have somebody just look at your situation and be objective about it and not have feelings about it, not feel the $13 day that you're feeling, is incredibly valuable. So valuable.